Correctly and safely loading vehicles onto rail cars at Auto Warehousing Company is a challenging and vital job. This safety video will illustrate proper procedures for loading, offloading, and railcar preparation. Let's start off with the loading process. Before doing any rail loading work, set up the blue stop flag, sign, or derailleur. Position the flag at the end of the railcar string opposite the loading ramp so it can be seen readily by railroad personnel as they deliver and remove rail cars. This alerts the railroad to not move any cars until the AWC crew is completely finished. The authorized person must lock out and unlock derailleurs. Every handbrake on every rail car in the string must be checked and tightened as necessary. Rail cars without the brake set properly can move when vehicles are loaded onto them. Check by cranking the brake handle. If it can be cranked more than twice before it is tight, then it is not properly set. Keep your work area clear of debris. Always discard used locking seals. When opening an end door, take care to prevent injury from possible falling objects. Look up. Mushroom tops have been known to fall off during opening and closing of doors. Do not grab the bottom edge of the door, and keep clear of the door track to prevent pinching or crushing of limbs as the door rolls open. Make sure doors are open completely and locking pins are fully seated. Due to mechanical defects, some end doors may require additional securement to ensure that they stay completely open during vehicle loading. If you encounter this, consult your lead or supervisor. Close one end door at the very end of the rail string opposite the rail loader. This will prevent driving off of the end of the string during loading. You will also stop a vehicle that may be skidding on a wet or icy deck. Records show that the majority of rail loading injuries have been due to poor practices. So for your safety, here are some things to keep in mind when doing any climbing on rail cars. First, follow the 3-point of contact rule whenever possible. The 3-point of contact rule simply means keeping 3 points of contact with the railcar ladder at all times, either 2 feet in one hand or 2 hands in 1 foot. It may seem a little awkward at first, but it's an easy habit to develop and it almost guarantees that you will not accidentally fall. Be sure to use the stirrup step at the very bottom of the ladder, especially when climbing down. This way you have good solid footing when you finally reach the ground, reducing the risk of injury to your foot or ankle. Do not step on couplers or release arms. They are not a safe source of footing. Release arms can move when you apply your body weight. If you need to cross over a junction, use the ladders. Some ladders have less toe space than others. Use extreme caution in these cases. Grease and moisture can make metal surfaces very slippery, so pay attention to the ladder as you climb. When moving from the outside of the rail car to the inside, or vice versa, visually check your handhold and foothold before you reach around to transfer your body weight to them. And be sure to maintain your 3 points of contact. Be conscious of your footing at all times. 3 points of contact is critical for your safety. Failure to have proper 3-point of contact can lead to serious injury or even death. Prior to any rail car loading activity, make sure that there is a warning system to alert associates that the rail cars are not yet prepared to be loaded. The most common method is to place an orange safety cone on each deck of the first rail car closest to the loading ramp on every string. The cones are only removed when the rail cars have been cleared for loading. If flags or signs are used, they should be also located so that they are clearly visible at the entrance of each deck. Please communicate to each other before loading. Distances between rail cars are most often spotted at the time of their delivery. This is usually done by railroad personnel with a spacing bar while in radio contact with a rail engineer. However, some AWC locations spot their own rail cars after they have been delivered. The spotting distance is measured from the back of the barrel ring on one car to the center of the locking pin hole on the other car, or to the bottom door track on rail cars with panel type end doors. There are different bridge plate lengths to accommodate variances in spotting distance. When the spotting distance ranges from 38 to 46 inches, 53-inch plates may be used. When the range is from 41 to 49 inches, a longer 56-inch plate may be used. A range of 38 to 56 inches is allowable for a third type of plate that is adjustable. If the spotting distance is not within the acceptable range, it must be corrected before the string of rail cars may be loaded. Also, at any given deck junction, 2 plates of the same length must be used. It is absolutely critical that bridge plates be inspected before they are installed. A damaged bridge plate can fail when a vehicle is driven over it, possibly causing serious vehicle damage or personal injury. So make sure that they are free of visible serious defects such as cracks, loose bolts, or significant distortion. When installing bridge plates, make sure they fit properly and that the bridge plate pins are engaged securely into the barrel rings. Inspect barrel rings for any structural damage, such as cracked welds or being bent, so that the plate pin will not insert fully. Plates should be positioned relative to the direction of the traffic flow, with the pin end first. If there is significant height difference between adjoining decks, install the plate in the direction that provides the smoothest transition between decks. If there is a deck height difference in excess of 3 inches, it should be corrected before the bridge plates are installed and the deck is loaded. Unless the rail cars are spotted by the AWC personnel at your particular site, this means the railroad is to be notified for corrective action. One thing to keep in mind while working on the decks is that bridge plates can move from side to side when you apply your body weight to them, so be careful when walking up and down the string. When loading tri-level rail cars, the B-level hinge deck must be raised in order to load vehicles on A deck. This must be done on every rail car in the string that is to be loaded. Hinge decks are very heavy, so at a minimum, 2 people are required to raise them with both people lifting at the same time. Don't attempt to raise a hinge deck alone. As a 2-person team, manually disengage the spring-loaded locking pin on either side and lift the deck into the upper position. When the deck locks into the upper position, check to see that the locking pins are fully seated. On tri-level cars, the hinge decks must be loaded and locked before B deck is loaded. When lowering the decks, always alert nearby associates by yelling "heads up." On chain-equipped cars, the first and last vehicles on A deck of each rail car must be tied down before the decks are lowered. Use caution to ensure that there is enough clearance between the highest point of the vehicle and the hinge deck. The loading ramps used at your facility may be fixed or mobile. Whichever type is used, a qualified associate who is authorized by the terminal manager to operate ramps must position it at the beginning of the rail car string. Do not attempt to operate a ramp if you have not been trained. If a mobile ramp is used, make sure that the ramp loading angle is correct and that outriggers, chocks, or other restraint devices are deployed to secure the ramp in place. Otherwise, the ramp could move during vehicle loading. This next section has to do with checking the decks immediately prior to loading. This step is absolutely vital to the success of your rail operation. In fact, the root cause of most severe vehicle damage accidents can be traced back to improper preloading deck inspection. So learn to follow these simple rules, and you'll be on your way to having an accident-free job site. Just prior to the loading process of each deck level, a lead or other associate qualified by the terminal manager must inspect all the decks on that level for the whole string. This requires the inspector to physically do a walkthrough just before it is loaded. They must verify that every set of bridge plates is set correctly by looking at the pins and shaking the free end of each plate back and forth. Also check for adequate overlap of the plate's free end on the deck's resting surface. The loading ramp is properly positioned and make sure one end door is closed. They should also check for debris or obstructions that could cause damage to vehicles such as trash, snow, or ice buildup, or chocks and chains that are not stored properly. If the rail cars are tri-levels, the inspector will also check to make sure that the hinge decks are in the correct position and that the locking pins are fully engaged. Remember that bridge plates can shift from one side to side under your body weight, so use caution and common sense at all times. Upon inspection, each deck must be signed off by the individual that walked the specific deck. You will find an example of a deck inspection sign-off sheet on SharePoint. After the inspector is satisfied that all is in order and all items are checked off, the inspector will then remove the safety cone or flag. This signals the other rail loaders or drivers that deck has been inspected and is safe and ready to load. The cone or flag may be removed only by the person that walked the deck and deemed it safe to load. It is imperative that this procedure be followed to the letter to ensure the safety of each loading associate and the quality of the vehicles we deliver. Bump caps are recommended for protection against striking your head on metal surfaces and other objects during rail loading operations. Knee pads are recommended for kneeling on decks during the tying down process. Gloves should be of a slip-resistant type. A rubber-coated glove works well for this. Smooth cloth gloves are hazardous on metal ladders. Wear rugged footwear with slip-resistant traction. That's a must. At some rail sites, work boots are preferred for stability, while sturdy athletic shoes are popular at locations with warmer climates. Whatever type you choose, remember having solid footing is critical when working on rail cars. Your safety depends on it. Clothing should be clean and free of objects that would cause damage to any part of a vehicle, such as tools in pockets, watches, belt buckles, rings, necklaces, metal grommets on knee pads, etc. Zippers must be done all the way up and covered. Gloves must be clean if worn in vehicles. Do not wear knee pads in vehicles. They can cause damage to the underside of the dash surface. At auto warehousing, all the rules that have to do with vehicle quality and cleanliness that apply to basic driving tasks also apply to rail loading. The key difference between you, the rail loader, and other AWC associates is that you are the last one to make physical contact with our product before it is shipped. So, acting as a final inspector, you are responsible to notify your lead or supervisor of imperfections found with any vehicle. Every effort should be made by each rail loader to preserve the vehicle's newness. Everything from the way it's driven and parked, right down to the placement of seat and floor protection, and keys being stored exactly as the manufacturer specifies. If you have any questions on specific procedures, ask your lead or trainer. Every AWC location has a system for staging the loading of vehicles on rail cars. In many cases, this is done using a sign-off sheet. Make sure you know what system is used at your facility and follow it. This is for your safety and the safety of your fellow associates. Before loading a vehicle, give it a quick walk around and inspect it for dents, scratches, cracked glass, flat tires, and other obvious defects. Make sure trunk lids, rear hatches, and tailgates are closed. Always enter the vehicle through the driver's side door only. Then take a look around the interior of the vehicle and look for defects on the inside before you proceed to load it. Remember, you are the final inspector. When approaching the loading ramp, leave at least one vehicle length between you and the vehicle in front of you. Also observe this practice on rail cars. When on the loader, only one vehicle is permitted on the loader at any time. Use extreme caution when driving vehicles through the rail car to prevent damage from contact with any part of the auto rack or its equipment. Keep the vehicle centered in the rail car as you drive through it. Always use a spotter when loading dual-wheeled vehicles. Be alert for any sudden surprises, such as a missing bridge plate, ice or liquids on the deck, debris, or any other unsafe condition that may cause vehicle damage or personal injury. Immediately stop your vehicle and alert your lead or coworkers if you see these dangers. On auto racks equipped with chains or Great Lock chocks, center vehicles over the chock tracks. On rail cars with strap harness chocks, the tires should be positioned so that the straps are centered on the tire's tread surface. In most cases, a space between the tire and the chock track of about 2 inches accomplishes this. However, the space should not be less than a ½ inch according to AAR regulations. The highest spot on a vehicle must be no closer than 3 inches for any object or metal surface above it at the closest point of contact. Vehicles in the end position on each rail car are to be at least 5 inches from the closed door at the closest point of contact. Spot vehicles with a minimum of 3 inches between the closest points of any 2 adjacent vehicles parked on a deck. Finally, make sure the front tires are straight before turning off the engine. Set the emergency brake and make sure all the accessories are in the off position. Make sure all windows, glove boxes, and vents are closed. Ensure that the seat and floor protection are neatly in place. Place the keys and set the transmission according to the manufacturer's published procedures. Special care should be taken when getting out of a vehicle. At no time should the door come in contact with any part of the auto rack or its equipment, so a hand may be used to protect the door's edge as it is open. Except for the door handle, the edge of the door, or the tires, do not come in contact with the exterior of the vehicle in any way. After exiting the vehicle, check to make sure all the doors and windows are completely closed. When carrying tools inside loaded rail cars, always carry the tool in the outside hand, away from the vehicle. All tools used inside loaded rail cars must have a protective coating on the handles to prevent accidental damage to the automobiles. There are several types of tie-down apparatus used in rail cars to secure automobiles to the decks. The two most commonly used are Great Lock chocks, which lock into a plate on the metal grate underneath the vehicle, and chocks with straps that secure the tires to the deck, which are tightened by ratcheting vertically with a hand ratchet. Always hand down bridge plates. Never toss them to the ground. Dropping them causes unnecessary wear and tear, making them unsafe and unusable much sooner. And obviously it is dangerous to associates that may be nearby on the ground. Always wait to move bridge plates from a junction until the first vehicle of the next deck has been parked. On tri-level rail cars, the hinge decks must be lowered and locked before B deck is loaded. Alert nearby associates by yelling "heads up." On chain-equipped cars, the first and last vehicles on each rail car must be tied down before the decks are lowered. Use caution to ensure that there is enough clearance between the highest point of the vehicle and the hinge deck. When closing end doors, be aware of possible falling objects. Always look up. Keep clear of the door track and do not grab onto the bottom edge of the door. Make sure that the locking pins are fully seated. Properly install the correct sealing device, and after all personnel are finished with the string and it has been cleared for shipment, the blue flag can be lowered. Some AWC locations are responsible for rail car preparation. When blowing out rail cars, on cars equipped with grate lock chocks, lift the grating prior to blowing them out with a leaf blower. Clear any and all debris from the deck and dispose of in proper containers. End doors are to be lubed once every 12 months to keep them in good working order. Depending on the type of rail car, there are specific lubrication points that require service. At the time of service, the old date is to be covered with spray paint and the current date stenciled in at the correct position inside on A deck. Also, if you see any mechanical defects, notify your lead for corrective action. For additional information, consult your multi-level manual provided by the American Association of Railroads. Most of the principles and procedures for safe vehicle loading also apply to offloading. Remove door seals and dispose of them in the proper container. Remember, it's your job to keep the area clear of any debris. Make sure doors are open completely and the locking pins are fully seated. Alert your lead or supervisor if you have any difficulty. Due to mechanical defects, some doors may require additional securement to keep them open while vehicles are being offloaded. Before any vehicles may be offloaded, the chocks or chains securing the vehicles must be removed. Once they are removed, they must be properly stored. For strap chocks, the chock must be placed so that it is entirely within the confines of the storage tray, with the ratcheting mechanism facing away from the vehicle. On rail cars equipped with buttons for securing the straps, situate the straps in a crisscross pattern. When there are no hangers available for chock straps, the straps must be wrapped neatly around the chocks and placed entirely inside the chock trays. For chains and other apparatus, consult your trainer or lead. They will also explain any other safety precautions that are unique to your particular site. As with the pre-loading deck check, each deck is to be inspected before any vehicles are offloaded. The person doing the inspection must verify that the bridge plates and hinge decks are installed correctly. Before unloading a vehicle, each driver is responsible for inspecting their vehicle for damage, making sure that the tie-down devices have been removed and stored properly, and that the deck is clear of debris or any obstructions. Vehicles should only be entered through the driver's side door. Use extreme caution when opening vehicle doors, ensuring that they do not come in contact with any part of the auto rack, and use your hand to shield the door if necessary. Follow the same rules for driving vehicles off of the deck as you would for driving them on. Only drive one vehicle on the loading ramp at a time. Vehicles should be started and unloaded under their own power, so follow any specific manufacturer's instructions for no-start vehicles. Keep at least one car length between moving vehicles. Vehicles should be parked straight with the driver's side tires on the yellow line, and with a minimum of 10 inches between any two vehicles in a row. As you would with parking any vehicle at AWC, make sure that the seat and floor protection, accessories, transmission, and keys are all in order before exiting. This concludes our rail safety video. For more detailed information, consult your AWC standard operating procedures for rail loading and offloading.